Pretty cool, huh? So we printed a mask as a test to see if we could actually print masks on our printer here. So I'll have this coming up in an upcoming video, and I'll show you how to make them in a different video. But in the meantime, we're going to be focusing on Latinx this week. We're mainly focusing on Latin and Hispanic astronauts that have gone to space. So here's how this listing is going to work. I'm going to list out the astronauts that have been into space, and then we're going to cut to an interview of those astronauts talking about their time in space and how they got there. For reference, when I say Soyuz rockets, those are rockets that are launched from Russia. Whenever I say STS, those are space shuttles that are launched from the United States. Now, space shuttles aren't launched into space anymore, but Soyuz rockets are still used. The first astronaut we're going to highlight is Arnaldo Mendez, who was on Soyuz 38. He was the first Latin American to fly in space, and was also the first black person to fly in space. The next astronaut we're going to highlight is Rodolfo Vela, who was the first Mexican in space and was on mission STS-61B.
When I was a little kid, I didn't dream of becoming an astronaut. It was something that I thought I couldn't get, but I kept studying, and I decided to be an engineer when Neil Armstrong was walking on the moon. It was not easy. My father lost his job. I had to work during the morning, and in the afternoon and evening, I went to the university.
Next on our list is Franklin Chang Diaz, who was the first Costa Rican Hispanic astronaut in space, and was on many missions, including STS-61-C, STS-34, STS-46, STS-60, STS-75, STS-91, and STS-111.
The moment that you lift off into space, the acceleration, the G-forces, that instantly changes to complete freedom when the engines stop. You want to unbuckle and just fly. What you see is the most beautiful thing you ever saw.
Next on our list is Sidney Gutierrez, who was the first U.S. Hispanic astronaut in space and was on STS missions 40 and 59.
I remember one individual, a little bit older than me, who told me, there's no way you're going to be an astronaut. I was like, why? And he said, they're never going to pick a kid from New Mexico.
Sidney McNeil Gutierrez, also known as retired Air Force Colonel, to the world, NASA astronaut.
I'm the first U.S.-born Hispanic astronaut, yes.
What a title. Did you ever think that title was going to be bestowed upon you?
I always wanted to be an astronaut.
Next on our list is Ellen Ochoa, who was the first female Hispanic astronaut in space and was on STS missions 56, 66, 96, and 110.
Dr. Ellen Ochoa has received numerous awards, including NASA's Distinguished Service Medal and 4 spaceflight medals. She is also the recipient of the Hispanic Heritage Leadership Award. 2 schools bear her moniker, the Ellen Ochoa Middle School in Pasco, Washington, and the Ellen Ochoa Learning Center in Cudahy, California. Ochoa is married with 2 children. She is a classical flautist and private pilot. Currently, she serves as the Deputy Director of NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston.
Next on our list is Michael Lopez Alegria on STS mission 73, 92, 113, and Soyuz TMA-9.
My name is Michael Lopez Alegria, and I'm the Assistant to the Director for Flight Crew Operations for ISS matters, International Space Station matters. I was born in Spain. My father is Spanish, my mother was American, and we moved to this country when I was about 2. Lived in Boston for 3 years. Southern California is pretty much where I grew up. I went to the Naval Academy undergraduate, left there and went to flight training. I was a Navy pilot. Became interested in test pilot school, or becoming a test pilot, and the way to do that in the Navy is to go to their test pilot school, and it was then that I sort of reawakened the dream that I had had when I was younger, like a lot of kids, of being an astronaut, because I was reading an article in a magazine about Naval Test Pilot School, and there was a sidebar that mentioned all the famous graduates that had gone on to become astronauts, and sort of at that point I said, well, if they can do it, maybe I can too, and that's kind of how it all started.
Next on our list is Carlos Noriega, who was the first Peruvian-born astronaut and was on STS missions 84 and 97.
actually seeing the accomplishments of all those people when we did the fly around and got a chance to see those deployed arrays and radiators and how much the station had grown during our visit was just a tremendous sense of satisfaction for me.
Next on our list is Pedro Duque, who was the first Spanish astronaut in space and was on STS mission 95 and on Soyuz TMA-3. Next on our list is John D. Olivas, and was on STS missions 117 and 128.
I can trace my memory of wanting to become an astronaut back to when I was about 7 years old. We went on a summer vacation from El Paso here to Houston, and as part of the things that we looked at here in Houston, one of them was Johnson Space Center. My father worked on cars. It was not a single machine that he was afraid of tearing apart and putting back together again, and I remember seeing that as a kid. It was very influential for me, and it was through that pursuit of a passion that when I applied to become an astronaut, NASA saw that that's really what they were looking for. Not so much people who wanted to become astronauts as much as people who were passionate about what they were doing. If I'd never become an astronaut, I would have been very happy being a mechanical engineer.
Next on our list is Joseph Acaba, who was the first Puerto Rican in space, who was on STS-119 and Soyuz TMA-04M.
Right before I became an astronaut, I was a middle and high school math and science teacher in Florida. There's no more important profession than teaching. I mean, it's the most important job out there. It's just something that kind of called me. I was drawn to it, and once I started, I knew that was the job that I really wanted to have and I was meant to have.
So we're both excited to be kicking off the year of education in space with astronauts Joe Acaba and Ricky Arnold.
We're currently living in the year of education on the International Space Station. It started when I launched back in September.
NASA astronaut Joe Acaba making his third flight into space.
And last but certainly not least, Jose Hernandez, who was on STS mission 128.
My name is Jose Hernandez, and I'm an astronaut at NASA. What I would say to Latino youth in terms of being able to achieve their dreams is to don't give up. I think the key is that the students have to realize that one should not make excuses with respect to perhaps the social economic situation they find themselves, because I myself, I can trade poor stories with the best, and I don't accept that as an excuse. I think they ought to look at myself, they ought to look at Franklin Chang Diaz as examples of what can be accomplished if you put your mind to it, if you are willing to put the work in, if you're willing to get an education, and you're willing to chase that dream. Because I tell the kids, there's a difference between chasing a dream of becoming an astronaut and chasing a dream of becoming, say, a soccer player or a football player. Because typically, when kids chase those dreams, and I have no problem them chasing the dreams, I say, if they're good in those sports, they should. But I emphasize to them, you have to have a backup plan. And a lot of times, these kids don't. They don't get a good education. So if they don't make it into the pro sports, they're out there washing cars, doing those type of work. On the other hand, if you chase the dream of, say, wanting to become a president or wanting to become an astronaut, well, there's certain steps you have to take before that. And the steps I took is, well, I knew I had to go to college, I knew I had to become an engineer, and I knew I had to work hard in my career. So what's the worst thing that could happen if I don't reach my dream of becoming an astronaut? I'm an engineer, and a good engineer. What's the worst thing, perhaps, that if someone doesn't reach to become president? They're probably a good lawyer, or they're probably working in some big company with a college degree. And that's what I tell the kids, is have a backup plan. It's okay to dream and go for the dream, but always have a backup plan, and education is the key to that.
All right, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.